You want them to respect you, right? No. Respect is too soft, too warm, too fleeting. You want them to fear you. You want your presence to wrap around their throats like a noose the second you enter the room. No smiles, no nods, no polite murmurs, just silence, thick, stifling, unnatural silence that screams louder than any voice ever could. Let that silence choke the life out of them. Let it sit in their chests like a weight they can't shake. See, words are cheap. Actions, sure, they're louder. But silence is thunder in disguise. It's the scream that echoes in their minds long after you're gone. People, they're weak, predictable, always talking, always reaching, always trying to matter. They throw words around like confetti, hoping someone notices, hoping someone cares. It's pathetic. Every sentence, every opinion, it all reeks of desperation. They want to be seen, be validated, but not you. You're gonna be different. You're gonna walk in and say nothing. Blank face, dead eyes. Let them project their fears onto you. Let them wonder what lies behind the quiet. You're not here to ask for respect. You're here to take it. And you take it by doing the one thing they'll never understand. Shutting up. You've been told all your life to speak up, to explain yourself, to be likable, to ask for what you want. But how has that worked out? Look around. Are you where you want to be? Did any of that talking get you anywhere? No, because words are for the needy, for those still begging to be accepted, but not you. You're gonna tap into something older, something primal. Silence. Cold, brutal, merciless silence. You ever sat in a room full of people where no one spoke, and yet the air buzzed with tension? That knot in your gut, that pressure in your chest, that's power. That's the storm you're gonna become. The kind of presence that shifts the temperature of a room. People will notice. They'll feel your energy before they even look your way. And when they do look, they'll see nothing. No expression, no tells. Just a void. That void is your weapon. Understand this, people don't care about you. Not really. They'll smile, shake your hand, call you friend, but the moment you're out of sight, you vanish from their minds. The only time they remember you is when you make them uncomfortable, when you force them to feel something. And nothing makes people feel more unsettled than someone they can't read. You've been trying to play their game, live by their rules, follow their script, but that script was never written for someone like you. It's a trap, a system built to keep you small. You think you'll win by being polite, by waiting your turn. The world doesn't give you what you earn. It gives you what you take. So take it. Take it without words, without warning. Let your stillness be the strike. When you say nothing, they'll lean in closer. They'll guess. They'll panic. The less you reveal, the more they fear. Think about all the times you spoke and regretted it. The times you justified yourself, defended your actions, explained your pain. And did it change anything? No. It just gave them ammo, gave them angles to twist your truth. But silence leaves them powerless. It leaves them grasping at shadows. You want to be respected. Start by disappearing into your own calm. Let them talk. Let them try to pull you in. You stay silent. And suddenly they're the ones exposed. They're the ones unraveled. Every word they say, every question they ask, is just another sign they're losing. They need to know what you're thinking. They need to know if they're getting to you. And when you give them nothing, they fall apart. That's the real game. Not shouting over others, but forcing them to scream into a void. They'll hate you for it, despise you for not playing along, but they'll respect you. They'll fear you. You'll walk into a room and own it without a word. And when you leave, they won't stop talking about it. Not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. That's control. That's dominance. It's not about being silent for the sake of silence. It's about what that silence means. It means you don't care. You're not affected. Their opinions don't register. Their judgments don't stick. And that drives them insane. Because they need you to react. They need you to care. Without that, they're left with their own insecurities, their own noise. You see, most people fear silence because it forces them to sit with themselves. But not you. You thrive in it. You become the silent. Let them fill it with their noise. Let them implode trying to decode the calm. Because here's the secret. They'll never figure you out. And that's what gives you the edge. You don't react. You don't explain. You don't justify. You endure. You observe. You stay rooted. And they spiral. That's your win. Not in arguments, not in brawls, but in stillness. In silence that bends the room around you. They'll never understand how someone can be so quiet and still be so loud. And by the time they do, it's too late. You're already in their heads, already shaping their thought. You've become the mirror they didn't want to look into, a reflection of everything they fear. That's the power you carry. You're not just someone who keeps quiet. You're the reason they can't sleep, the reason they double-check their words, the shadow they can't shake. And the best part, you didn't say a damn thing. So you've decided to stop talking, to let silence do the work. But that's just the first step. Silence alone doesn't make you powerful. Silence without direction is just noise in reverse. What comes next is focus, discipline, control. You want fear? You want power? Then you better understand that silence is just the surface. Beneath it, there has to be steel. Most people crumble in silence because they haven't built anything inside. When the noise fades, all they hear is the chaos of their own mind. That's why they keep talking to drown themselves out. But you're going to forge something deeper. When you're silent, you're not empty. You're full of fire, full of purpose, full of intention. Every second you're not reacting. You're observing, studying, learning. You become a mirror reflecting their flaws, their insecurities, their chaos. But for that to work, you need internal control. You need to master your impulses. You need to crush every urge to speak, every itch to justify, every reflex to defend. That's what they don't tell you. Power isn't loud. It's restrained. It's the man who could destroy everything with a word but chooses not to. It's the woman who sees everything, understands everything, but lets them sweat in their ignorance. That kind of power doesn't come from talent or luck. It comes from discipline, from building walls inside your mind that no one can climb. You have to train your reactions like a soldier sharpens his weapon. You don't flinch, you don't explain, you don't engage, unless you choose to. Your silence is no longer passive, it's weaponized. Think of it like this. Every person you meet is playing a game. They want attention, they want a reaction. They poke and prod and provoke just to see what stirs in you. And the second you give them what they want, whether it's anger or laughter, or even agreement, you've lost. You've surrendered control. But if you give them nothing, if you look through them like they're glass, if you remain unmoved, then you have the power. Because now they are exposed. Now they're the ones out in the open, flailing, trying to fill the silence you control. And while they talk themselves in circles, while they reveal too much, while they get sloppy trying to impress or intimidate you, you sit still, you take notes, you file away their weaknesses. You become the eye of the storm, untouched, unshaken. And here's the part that really burns them. Your silence makes them feel irrelevant. Because in a world where everyone's desperate to be seen, to be heard, to be validated, your indifference is a slap in the face. You're not rejecting them, you're treating them like they don't exist. And that cuts deeper than any insult. That's why they'll call you arrogant, cold, emotionless. They'll say you think you're better than them. and maybe you are, but you don't need to say it. They already believe. That's the secret. The less you say, the more they imagine. They'll start filling in the blanks with their own fears, their own insecurities, and those are always worse than anything you could say out loud. It's not just about being quiet. It's about what your quiet suggests. Maybe you're judging them. Maybe you're planning something. Maybe you just don't care. And because they don't know, they spin. They spiral. That's when you start to notice the shift. They speak faster, laugh harder. Their words get louder, more frantic, more defensive. They try to dominate conversations, try to reclaim control, but it's already gone. You took it the moment you chose not to react. And if you do speak, if you break that silence, make every word count. Let each sentence land like a hammer. Speak with precision, with weight. Like every word costs you something. People will lean in, they'll hang on every syllable. Because when you speak rarely, your words carry value. That's the economy of silence. The less you spend, the more it's worth. But don't just use silence on others. Use it on yourself. Learn to sit with your own thoughts without reaching for distractions. Learn to be uncomfortable. That's where real strength comes from. Not comfort. Not ease, but endure. When you can sit in the heat of your own mind and not run, not speak, not lash out, that's when you've taken the next step. You're not just silent, you're unshakable. You've built a fortress around your will. That's why monks train in isolation. That's why warriors meditate before battle. They understand what modern people don't. Noise is weakness. Distraction is weakness. The ones who rule their inner world are the ones who dominate the outer one. And once you master that stillness, you become untouchable. You stop reacting to the world, and the world starts reacting to you. People will start treating you differently, even if they can't explain why. They'll defer to you, avoid challenging you. You won't even have to ask for space. They'll give it to you, not because you demanded it, but because they feel it. That pressure, that presence, that weight of someone who doesn't need their approval. Someone who's already won the battle inside. But don't get complacent. This isn't a one-time thing. You'll be tested, constantly. There will be people who try to drag you back into the noise. People who bait you with drama. People who challenge your silence, just to see if they can break you. And sometimes, you'll want to break. You'll want to scream, to fight, to show them how wrong they are. But that's the moment you remember who you are. That's the moment you double down. You let the pressure build inside like a coiled spring, but you don't release it. You transmute it. You turn it into presence, into power. And when they realize they can't reach you, that their words bounce off you like arrows against stone, that's when they'll start to fear you. Not because you're cruel, not because you're violent, but because they can't move you. Because you exist beyond their games. You've become a force, and forces don't explain themselves. They just are. That's the version of you that wins. Not the one who pleads, not the one who defends, but the one who listens, watches, waits. The one who understands that the loudest room is often the weakest. The one who knows that stillness is strength. You don't need noise to be powerful. You don't need an audience to matter. You've become your own source of gravity. Let them orbit around you. Let them wonder why they can't look away, why their words feel smaller when you're around. And as they struggle to decode you, to measure you, to find a crack in your composure, you sit calm, unmoved, knowing that the storm lives in them now, not in you. So now you've got the silence, the discipline, the presence. But there's something deeper you still need to kill before they truly fear you. It's not the noise. It's not even the words. It's the emotion, the attachment, that soft bleeding core that still wants to be liked, that still aches when someone mocks you, doubts you, forgets you. That has to die. Because the moment they know you care, even a little, they own you. People don't fear the angry man. They don't fear the loud man. They fear the unrateable one, the one they can't reach. the one whose face stays still while everyone else is burning. That's who you're becoming. Cold doesn't mean cruel. It means in control. It means you've put distance between who you are and what they say. It means their words pass through you like smoke. You want to know how to become untouchable. Stop letting their opinions stick. Stop letting their smiles move you. Stop letting their hate pull you in, because none of it matters. None of it is real. Today they cheer, tomorrow they boo, and the day after that they forget you wherever they are. That's people. That's what they do. So you must become something they can't forget, not because you begged for space in their minds, but because your existence violated everything they thought they understood. You walk into their world like a glitch in the system, a presence that doesn't beg, doesn't need, doesn't explain, and it rattles them, because most people spend their entire lives reacting, apologizing, adjusting to stay liked. But you burn the need for validation to the ground. You become unpredictable. One day you're silent. The next day you speak with the sharpness of a blade. One day you vanish without a word. The next you appear like lightning and leave before they can understand what happened. You train them to know nothing about you. Not your pattern, not your reactions, not your desires. You become chaos disguised as calm. That's the evolution. Silence was the first step. Detachment is the second. Unpredictability is the third. You want real power, then never let anyone know what matters to you. The moment they find your pressure points, they'll press. Even the kind ones, even the friends. It's instinct, curiosity, control. But when you erase the signs, when your face shows no flicker, when your voice stays level even when they attack your deepest places, that's when they back off. That's when they realize you are no longer one of them. You've stepped beyond, and it's not that you feel nothing, it's that you've stopped giving them the privilege of seeing it. You've become your own keeper, your own world. You carry storms inside, but show them blue sky. You carry rage inside, but offer stillness. You don't lie, you just stop letting the world believe it. Knows you, and that terrifies them, because most people can't live without being known, being seen, being praised. But you sit in solitude like a king. You don't need the throne. You don't need the crown. You are the kingdom. And when they finally realize they can't affect you, can't guilt you, can't shame you into acting the way they want, they break. It's not even about winning. It's about control. It's about ownership of your mind, your time, your space. You don't give access. You let people wander around the edges of your presence, hoping to find a door. But there is no door. There is no entry. They get what you allow when you allow it, and nothing more. And yes, they'll hate that. They'll call you fake, aloof, emotion. But what they really mean is this: I can't control you. And that scares me, and it should. Because once you no longer need their approval, their understanding, their comfort, you've entered a different league. You've become a ghost in their machine, a quiet force moving without explanation. And if you ever do show emotion, let it be deliberate, calculated, controlled. Don't rage, slice, don't cry, disappear, don't beg. Smile with eyes that say nothing, because the moment they see you bleed, they'll go for the wound. It's not personal, it's human nature. But when they see you don't bleed at all, that's when the fear sets in. That's when you become the one they whisper about, the one they warn others about. Don't mess with him. Don't cross her. You never know what they're thinking. That mystery is power. That silence is strategy. That unpredictability, that's war. Because while they're busy trying to map your patterns, trying to find your weaknesses, you're already 10 moves ahead. You've learned how to sit still while others scream, how to vanish when needed, strike when unexpected. You don't chase, you don't explain. You watch, you choose, you move like a shadow with teeth. That's the kind of presence that lives in their heads rent-free. That's the kind of force that doesn't need attention to own the room. And it all starts with the decision to let go of needing anything from them. Not their respect, not their approval, not their fear, You don't want fear for its own sake. You want the space it creates, the silence it demands, the respect it forces. That's why they must never know where you stand, never know what you care about, because mystery breeds reverence, and in that reverence, power grows. You are no longer the one trying to be understood. You are the one making them question themselves, and the longer they question, the more they reveal, the more you learn, the less you give. It's a beautiful cycle, a quiet domination, a silent dismantling of everything they think they know about you. You are no longer playing defense. You are the mirror, the silence, the storm. You don't rise to their chaos. You let them rise and fall while you remain still. And in that stillness, you become undeniable. You become the threat they can't predict. Now that you've mastered the silence, embraced detachment, and erased the need for their validation, it's time to build the most dangerous thing of all, unshakable self-respect. Because you can have silence, you can have control, you can be unreadable, but if you don't respect yourself from the inside out, it's all a house of glass waiting for a stone. Real power, true, immovable, untouchable power, starts with how you see yourself when no one's watching. It's not about confidence. Confidence can be faked. It can be dressed up and posted online, shouted in boardrooms, smiled through at parties. No, this is something different. This is sovereignty. This is standing in a room full of people who think they're better than you, who doubt you, who mock you, and not even feeling the urge to prove them wrong. Not because you're insecure, but because you know they're irrelevant. Because their opinions bounce off you like dull arrows against iron skin. That's what self-respect gives you. It's the armor no one sees. It's the voice in your head that says, I know who I am. Not because someone else approved, but because you decided that's enough. And that's terrifying to people. Because most of them build their identities off the crowd, off applause, off relationships, status, likes, comments, nods of approval. Strip that away and they crumble. But not you. You are carving your sense of worth out of stone. You are sculpting a version of yourself that doesn't need the world's hands to shape it. You don't care if they love you. You don't care if they hate you. You don't even care if they see you. Because you've already seen yourself and you didn't flinch. You didn't need applause. You didn't need forgiveness. You looked in the mirror and said, this is who I am, and I'm done apologizing for it. And that is where real danger begins. Because a person who doesn't need to be liked is a person who cannot be controlled. A man who doesn't seek agreement becomes immune to manipulation. A woman who doesn't seek reassurance becomes a weapon in a world that runs on insecurity. You step outside the system. You stop playing the social currency game. You no longer need the dopamine hit of being told you're good enough. Because now, you know, and knowing is more dangerous than all their noise combined. But this doesn't happen by accident. You build it like a fortress brick by brick, day by day. Every time you hold the line, every time you set a boundary, every time you walk away from a situation where you're being disrespected, without raising your voice or explaining your worth. You reinforce it. That's how it grows, quietly, invisibly, until one day you walk through life with a calm that makes people stop mid-sentence. They can feel it, the weight of someone who doesn't need them, the gravity of someone whose self-worth isn't for sale. It's in the way you walk, the way you breathe, the way you look them in the eyes without blinking. You're not aggressive, you're not threatening, but you're immovable. You don't argue your value. You don't debate your principles. You don't shrink yourself to fit their comfort zones. And when they test you, because they will test you, they'll poke, they'll provoke, they'll try to find the old version of you, the one that used to explain, to justify, to seek peace. But that version is dead. You buried it the day you stopped seeking acceptance and started building self-respect. And now, you don't react. You respond, if you even bother. And when you do speak, it's deliberate, it's clean, it's final. They may not like it, but they won't forget it. Because you've separated yourself from the herd, and the herd doesn't forget the one who walked away and never looked back. The one who didn't need applause or comfort or understanding. The one who built their peace in solitude. That's the kind of presence that echoes long after you're gone. But it's not just for show. This isn't about power over others. It's about freedom. Freedom from the addiction to approval. Freedom from the fear of being disliked. Freedom from the games people play to feel big by making others feel small. When you stop needing their applause, you stop fearing their silence. And when you stop fearing their silence, you become free. Free to walk your path. Free to make your choices. Free to live by your own code. Not out of rebellion, not out of ego, but out of clarity. You finally see the world for what it is. You see people for what they are. Some will love you, some will hate you. Most won't even understand you. And that's fine, that's perfect, because you no longer live for them. You live for the one person who matters. And in that space, in that clarity, you find a kind of peace that terrifies people. Not the peace that comes from having everything, but the peace that comes from needing nothing. The kind of peace that isn't shaken by gossip, by opinions, by rejection. That's rare, that's real, and that's why they'll fear you. Not because you're cruel, not because you're harsh, but because you're whole. Because you walk like someone who could lose it all and still be dangerous. Because you've already faced the only enemy that mattered, your own self-doubt, and destroyed. You don't flinch, you don't fold, you stand alone if necessary, unliked if necessary, unheard if necessary. Because self-respect doesn't need an audience. It doesn't ask for applause. It just, and when they finally realize that you don't need them, that you never did, they'll either try to destroy you or become you. Either way, you've already won, because you are free. You've done the work. You've silenced the noise, detached from the chaos, burned away the need for approval, and built a fortress of self-respect that no one can penetrate. But now we move into the arena of psychological endurance, of warfare without swords, where your presence alone becomes a blade, pressed against the throat of their insecurity. See, most people, they can fake strength for a moment, for a day, maybe even a week. But endurance, that's what separates you. That's what breaks them. Because while they run on adrenaline, you run on stillness. While they need momentum, you live in pause. You don't just survive silence, you weaponize it. You don't just withstand discomfort, you become it. That's the shift. That's where the real war begins. When your silence isn't just a defense anymore, it's an attack. You sit there calm, still, unreadable, and they unravel. It's not just confusion. It's not just curiosity. It's fear. Deep, gnawing fear of what they don't understand. Because people are terrified of what they can't predict, terrified of the unknown. And when they look at you and see nothing they can manipulate, influence, or provoke, they panic. They don't say it. They won't show it. But inside, they're clawing at the walls of their own mind, wondering what you're thinking, what you're planning, who you really are behind those still eyes. That's the beginning of psychological collapse. And all you did was breathe. But don't mistake this for simplicity. This isn't passive. This takes control most people will never touch. To hold the line, to let them scream, insult, provoke, push, and you don't give them an inch. You don't twitch. You don't blink. You watch. You let their desperation do the damage. Because the more they speak, the more they reveal. The more they react, the more they lose. You become the mirror they can't stand to look into. The one that shows them everything ugly they try to hide. And that's your power. Not violence, not threats, just presence, just being. You've become a test and they keep failing. You ever seen someone walk into a room and change the temperature without a word? That's who you are now. You're the variable no one accounted for. The one that doesn't follow the rules. The one that doesn't rise when provoked or fall when ignored. You stand in the middle of the fire but don't burn. And when they realize they can't reach you, can't shake you, can't get a reaction, something inside them breaks. They'll call you cold, heartless, distant, but what they're really saying is, you didn't give me control, you didn't let me win. And no, you're not cruel, you're disciplined. You've trained your mind to outlast theirs. You've trained your soul to be still in chaos. You don't chase comfort, you don't chase peace. You are the storm now, you are the silence. You've gone beyond needing validation or revenge. You've become the end of the conversation, the full stop. Let them try, let them shout, let them mock you, bait you, threaten you. You won't move, you don't respond to games. You end them by refusing to play. They won't understand it, and they'll hate you for it, because everything in this world is built on reaction. Social systems, power struggles, validation loops. You've severed the connection, and that makes you dangerous. You've become immune to the poison they need to inject into others to feel better. And so, like addicts, they'll try again and again to get you to break, to explain, to slip, to even just flinch, but you won't. You'll stand there in total silence, total stillness, and they'll collapse under their own weight. That's when you see it, the switch, the fear turning into respect or desperation or obsession. Because once you've shown someone that you don't need to fight to win, that you don't even need to engage, you alter them. You rewrite the entire structure of the interaction. And now they have two choices: submit or spiral. And trust me, most spiral. Because submission to a person who never raised their voice, never lifted a finger, never even made a threat, that cuts deep, that leaves a scar. It rewires their understanding of control. And if you're not careful, they'll start chasing you just to get that feeling back, just to feel something, but you won't give it. Because this isn't about dominance, it's about removal. You don't care about beating them, you care about not being moved by them. You care about walking away without a scratch, without a word, without ever letting them in. Because your energy, that's sacred now. That's a fortress. Your mind, off limits. They don't get to access it. They don't get to rattle it. You've taught yourself to remain silent, not because you're hiding, but because there's nothing in them worth reacting to, and that drives them mad. Because most people live to provoke, to create reaction, to feel alive through chaos. But you don't give them chaos, you give them emptiness. And that's what destroys them. The absence of response, the void of attention. They'll try harder, get louder, become more extreme. But the more they do, the more exposed they become. And you remain still. That's how you win. Not by fighting, not by proving, but by being the one who never had to. Your calm is confrontation. Your silence is defiance. Your presence is pressure. And you don't need to explain it. You don't need to apologize for it. You don't even need them to understand it. Let them spin. Let them drown in their own noise. You just breathe. Watch. Endure. Because endurance is everything. Anyone can look powerful for a moment. Anyone can stay composed in good weather. But you've trained in storm. You've sharpened yourself in silence. You've become a monument to control in a world built on collapse. That's what makes you untouchable. You're not just different. You're proof that strength doesn't have to roar. That dominance doesn't have to be loud. That power doesn't need an audience. You've become the quiet truth that breaks people louder than any scream ever could. You are the pressure they can't handle, the test they'll never pass, the silence they can't survive. Now we arrive at the place most people never reach. The part where your presence has solidified into something that doesn't need to announce itself. You don't seek recognition anymore. You don't even want it. You've evolved beyond the need to be seen. You've become something else entirely, something that moves in silence and is felt in the bones. You walk into rooms and the air shifts. Eyes find you and look away just as fast. Conversations falter not because you interrupt them, but because your energy bends the rhythm of the moment. You're not speaking louder, you're just heavier, denser, unavoidable. And you didn't ask for it. You didn't perform for it. You became it. That's the difference between force and power. Force tries. Power just is. You've transcended the game most are still playing. They're still scrambling for attention, still begging for approval, still crafting personas out of desperation, while you've stripped all that down and stood in your own shadow, until the weight of it made people afraid to step too close. You've become more than unpredictable. You've become unreadable, untouchable, unshakable, and they feel that. They don't know why their stomach turns when you walk by. They don't understand why their voice trembles when they speak to you. They can't explain why you occupy their mind even when you've said nothing at all. But you do. You've burrowed into their perception. You've hijacked their narrative. You've taken root in the cracks of their identity, because your existence forces them to confront their own illusion. That's what people don't get about presence. It's not just about how loud you are. It's about how deeply you make them question themselves. And you've learned to master that by doing the one thing no one else has the strength to do. Remain unshaken. Your neutrality is the ultimate weapon now. You're past reacting, past responding. You don't get pulled into other people's emotional chaos, because you are the end of that chaos. You're the silence they can't fill, the stillness that exposes their panic. They come to you expecting resistance, expecting a fight, expecting drama. And when you give them nothing, when you just stare, when you simply exist, they break. Slowly, quietly, deeply. And it's not just enemies who feel it. It's everyone. Friends, strangers, colleagues. They all begin to behave differently. Not because you told them to, not because you demanded respect, but because the force you've become doesn't allow anything less. Your standards are now unspoken. Your boundaries are invisible, but ironclad. And anyone who violates them feels it in ways they can't explain. Through distance, through silence, through the sudden shift in your energy that makes them feel like they're standing on thin ice. That's how you teach people now. Not with words, not with warnings, with presence, with consequence. They learn through how you withdraw, how you stay calm when others would scream, how you remain seated while they stand and shout and flail, revealing everything about themselves while you reveal nothing. You're the one they can't provoke, the one they can't manipulate, the one who won't play the game. And that scares them more than any threat ever could, because people rely on predictability. They rely on patterns. They rely on the ability to push and pull and get reactions they can use to feel powerful. But you've erased the map. You've dismantled the pattern. You don't react. You don't correct. You don't soften. You just exist, and that existence causes pressure they can't escape. And if you do act, it's surgical, clean, final. You don't swing wildly. You strike with precision. One word, one move, one cold glance. That's all it takes now. Because you've trained yourself not just to endure, but to dominate without raising your voice. Your patience has turned into a sword. Your stillness has become a storm. And those around you, they either adapt or disappear. That's the gravity of your presence now. You no longer chase anything. You attract opportunities, power, fear, loyalty, obsession. It all starts coming to you because people can't help but be drawn to something they don't understand, something they can't explain, something they can't control. You've become a force of nature in a world of chaos. And forces don't ask permission. Forces don't explain themselves. They just move. They change the shape of things. That's you now. You don't have to act tough. You don't have to speak in riddles or quotes or threats. You are the quote. You are the reminder. You're the one they measure their energy against. And most fall short because they never did the work. They never faced the silence, never starved their need for validation, never sat still long enough to build a real core. So when they meet someone who did, someone like you, they feel it, and it terrifies them. And the best part, you're just getting started. Because the higher you climb in this internal evolution, the quieter you get, the less you show, the more you observe, and the stronger you become. Your power now is in your mystery, your control, your refusal to bend. You're no longer playing to survive. You're playing to define reality. You're shaping how people speak around you, how they move, how they think. And you don't do it with aggression. You do it with gravity, with weight, with presence. Let the others run their mouth. Let them post and plead and perform. You walk through the world like a shadow made of steel, unseen when you want to be, unmissable when you choose. That's who you are now. That's what you've become. And from here on out, you don't lower your voice. You lower you don't demand respect. You make it the only option. And you don't explain your power. You let them feel it. Let them fear it. Let them fear it. Let them talk about it long after you're gone. That's presence. That's legacy. That's chapters. You've built the silence, mastered the detachment, constructed self-respect from the ashes of need, endured the psychological warfare without a flinch, and turned presence into pressure. But now, it's no longer about being feared or respected or even remembered. It's about becoming inevitable. You're not playing the game anymore. You are the game. The rules bend around you. The energy in the room shapes itself to your presence. People don't know how to act around you, not because you intimidate them with volume or violence, but because you've become a symbol of something they can't put words to. Your presence no longer just unsettles them, it forces them to evolve or collapse. That's the level we're on now. You're not just changing yourself, you're changing others without ever trying to. They walk away different. Their rhythm is off. Their confidence dips. Their performance shifts because you made them see something real, something raw, something rare. And once someone sees that, once they feel it, they can't forget it. You don't just enter rooms. You shift frequencies. You don't just exist. You alter the very temperature of conversation. You are no longer defined by your reactions because you don't even have reactions anymore. You have awareness, intent, purpose, precision. You've evolved past defensiveness. You don't defend who you are. You demonstrate it through discipline. You embody it through restraint. People come at you with emotion, with panic, with envy, with judgment, and you just stand there, unmoved, untouched, eyes clear, heart still, mind 10 moves ahead. You're not even cold anymore. You're pure, refined. You don't dilute your presence to make others feel safe. You don't shrink your gravity to comfort the fragile. You let them feel the full weight of who you are, not because you want to hurt them, but because you refuse to lie. You've stopped pretending. You've stopped softening. And that level of truth, unapologetic, untamed, unfiltered, is something most people can't handle. They say they want honesty, but they really want comfort. And you don't provide comfort. You provide clarity. You provide reality. You are the mirror that doesn't and that mirror, your calm, your gaze, your stillness, shows people exactly what they've been hiding from. And in that reflection, they either awaken or retreat. Some will avoid you, not because you did anything wrong, but because you did something right. You didn't play small. You didn't make yourself digestible. You didn't nod when they were wrong, or smile when they were fake. And that honesty, that refusal to bend, it will offend the weak, but it will ignite the strong. Because deep down, even the fragile know the truth when they see it. Even the insecure respect what they can't shake. And that's what you've become now. Not just a person, but a presence, a standard, a reminder of what power looks like when it's not wrapped in noise. You walk differently. You speak differently. You choose different. You're no longer controlled by your history. You're not haunted by your past. You've made peace with your pain. You've turned it into structure, into depth, into focus. You don't need healing from people who broke themselves trying to fix others. You don't need permission to move on. You've written your own permission slip in fire and walked through it without looking back. You carry your scars with elegance now. They're not shame, they're evidence. Evidence that you've suffered and risen, that you've lost and sharpened, that you've seen darkness and chosen light. Not because light is easy, but because it's earned, and you've earned it. Every ounce of peace you carry now was carved out of storms. Every calm breath you take was paid for in full. You didn't stumble into strength. You built it. You bled for it. You sacrificed for it. You lost people for it. And you're not sorry. You're not bitter. You're better. And now you operate from a place most people never find. Stillness without stagnation. Movement without noise. Strength without need. You don't need recognition. You don't need defense. You don't need revenge. You've transcended the world of reactions and risen into the world of creation. You build now. You decide now. You observe and execute. You're not chasing peace. You are peace, and peace, when built properly, is intimidating. Because real peace doesn't flinch. It doesn't bow. It doesn't explain. It just is. And when people feel it, they either rise to match it or fall away completely. That's why your circle gets smaller. That's why fewer people can sit at your table. Not because you think you're better, but because you've become rare. Rare energy can't be wasted. Rare focus can't be scattered. Rare minds don't tolerate chaos. So you sit alone more often. Not because you're isolated, but because you're elevated. You're not above them. You're beyond them. Beyond the noise. Beyond the game. Beyond the fear. And now when someone enters your life, they feel it immediately. This isn't someone you lie to. This isn't someone you manipulate. This isn't someone you distract. This is someone you learn from, someone you grow with, or you leave. No in between, no half connection, no pretend. That's what chapter 7 is. The moment you realize you don't need to raise your voice, raise your hand, or raise your presence. You lower the world around you until only truth remains. And in that truth, in that silence, in that stare that sees everything and judges nothing, you become unforgettable. Not because of what you said, not because of what you did, but because of what you are. A presence they'll never forget, a force they'll never understand, a peace they'll never replicate. And that's your gift. That's your power. That's your legacy. This is it. The final form. The part where you stop becoming and start simply being. Where power is no longer something you reach for, or build, or protect. It's something you carry effortlessly, like breath, like heartbeat. You've walked through fire, starved your need for approval, turned silence into thunder, and turned your presence into gravity. You've stopped playing by the rules they wrote for you, and started creating the world around you through the way you move, speak, exist. But now chapter 8 isn't about fear anymore. It's not even about control. It's about legacy. What lingers after you leave. What echoes when you're gone. You see, power that disappears when you're no longer in the room was never real power. Real power lives in memory. It stays. It haunts. It teaches even when you're not there. And you've become that now. A force that shapes people from the inside out. Not through dominance. Not through force, but through the unbearable contrast of your presence versus everything they thought was normal. You walk into a room, and they feel every lie they've been living start to tremble. They feel their masks slide out of place. They speak softer. They stand straighter, not because you demanded it, but because your existence reminds them of everything they're not yet. You're not just a man. You're not just a woman. You're a shift. A transformation, a mirror that doesn't break when they throw stones at it. Because now you don't need anyone to see you. You've become the kind of person who doesn't need to be seen to be remembered. You've stopped broadcasting your power because it's already written into the atmosphere around you. You've stopped explaining your boundaries because people feel them before they get too close. You've stopped proving your worth because you understand something most never will, that the loudest person in the room is never the most dangerous. The quietest one is. And you now are silent by nature, because you've done the work, because there's nothing left to prove, because you've already won. But here's where it gets deeper. Now others start to watch, start to follow, not because you told them to, not because you asked, but because people are starving for authenticity, for presence, for something real. And when they see you, not the image, not the persona, but the reality, a person who does not flinch, does not fold, does not beg, does not chase, they begin to change without a word. They sit differently, think differently, move differently. You've become a silent teacher, not a preacher, not a performer, a present, the kind they think about when they're alone, the kind that lingers after conversations, the kind they try to explain to others but can't quite describe. They just know something was different about you. Something felt heavier, calmer, sharper, and they'll never forget it. And that's legacy. That's the immortality no one talks about. Being unforgettable, not through fame, not through noise, but through impact, quiet impact. You're no longer afraid of being misunderstood, because you know the ones who need to understand will feel it anyway. You no longer react to disrespect, because it can't reach you anymore. It bounces off the surface of who you are and falls into the silence you've made your home. And when someone tries to pull you into chaos, they fail before they begin, because they're standing on a battlefield that you already burned down. You don't live there anymore. You don't fight like they do. You win by not playing, and that's the final weapon: detachment without coldness, power without the need to dominate, presence without arrogance. The world doesn't understand that kind of energy. They try to label it, call it cocky, call it fake, call it intimidating. But deep down, they know it's none of those things. It's real, and real is rare. Real doesn't shrink. Real doesn't make noise to be seen. It sees, it knows, it stays silent, and lets others collapse under the weight of their own illusions. That's who you are now. You're not chasing fear. You're not chasing respect. You've transcended all that. You walk into a room, and the room rearranges itself. You speak once, and it's enough. You disappear, and the silence left behind feels louder than anyone else's voice. You no longer need to raise your chin to feel tall. You no longer need to strike to feel powerful. You carry your own thunder now, quiet, controlled, permanent. And when people finally realize they can't figure you out, can't control you, can't predict you, can't even define you, that's when they remember you forever, because you've become something they never prepared for. Not a threat, not a rival, not even an enemy. You've become a standard, something to measure themselves against, a test they didn't know they were taking until they failed it. And that's the end game. Not fear, not fame, not control, transformation. You became the kind of person who doesn't react, doesn't rush, You became the one who walks alone and is followed, the one who speaks little and is quoted forever, the one who made silence louder than war, presence stronger than noise, and stillness more unsettling than chaos. You didn't just learn how to survive. You didn't just learn how to dominate. You learned how to evolve into something people don't recover from. You became the one who doesn't ask for space but is given it, who doesn't ask to be heard but is listened to, who doesn't ask to be remembered but is never forgotten. That's not noise. That's not luck. That's not that's truth. That's what you've become. And now you vanish when you choose. You speak when it matters. You exist without explanation. And that's the legacy they'll whisper about long after the noise is gone. You were not loud. You were inevitable.